They taught you slavery was a chapter, a bad moment, an unfortunate past that ended. That is the first lie. What happened to black people over the last 4 centuries was not an accident of history. It was not chaos. It was not primitive cruelty slowly corrected by modern morality. It was engineered, financed, normalized, and global. For more than 400 years, black bodies were the fuel of the modern world, not metaphorically, literally. The labor, the land, the blood, the lives, turned into wealth for empires that still exist today. This is not a story that begins in chains. It begins in memory and in what was deliberately erased. Before European ships appeared on African shores, Africa was not empty. It was not silent. It was not waiting to be discovered. It was home to civilizations with governments, economies, armies, universities, trade networks, and spiritual systems older than many European states. Mali, Songhai, Benin, Congo, Ethiopia, Great Zimbabwe. Societies that traded gold, salt, textiles, ideas. Societies that negotiated with the world. Slavery existed, yes, but it was not racial, it was not permanent, it was not inherited through blood, and it was not the foundation of global capitalism. That came later. When Europe's hunger for expansion met Africa's coastline, something new was born. Not just a trade, a system, a machine. Human beings were reduced to inventory. The Atlantic Ocean became a graveyard, not because storms were cruel, because profit demanded speed, volume, and efficiency. Ships were packed so tightly with human cargo that people suffocated standing upright. Disease spread faster than breath. Bodies were thrown overboard to protect insurance claims. This was not hidden. It was documented, insured, legislated. European ports grew rich, banks expanded, universities were funded, entire cities rose on the unpaid labor of stolen people. Sugar, cotton, tobacco, coffee, commodities that built the modern world, all soaked in blood. And still, the lie persisted, that Africans were primitive, that blackness itself justified domination. This lie needed reinforcement, so it was written into law, into religion, into science. Black people were declared property, not temporarily, forever. Their children born enslaved, their languages forbidden, their names erased, their past rewritten as savagery. And it didn't stop at the Americas. Across the Sahara, enslaved Africans were marched north in chains. Across the Indian Ocean, they were shipped east, castrated, worked to death, forgotten by history books that pretend only one route mattered. Africa was not only exploited from the outside, it was destabilized from within. European demand distorted local power structures. Weapons replaced diplomacy. Raids replaced trade. Some African elites participated, not because Africa was evil, but because survival under invasion creates impossible choices. That truth is uncomfortable, but complexity does not erase responsibility. Europe set the price. Europe built the ships. Europe wrote the contracts. Europe armed the chaos, then blamed Africans for drowning. By the 19th century, abolition arrived, not as mercy, but as strategy. The trade became less profitable. Industrial capitalism no longer needed chains. It needed control. So slavery transformed. Colonialism replaced ownership with domination. Land was seized. Borders were drawn with rulers across maps that ignored language, culture, and history. Resources were extracted. Resistance was crushed. Millions died, not as collateral damage, but as policy. Congo, under Belgian rule, lost entire generations. Rubber quotas were enforced with mutilation. Hands were cut off to prove bullets weren't wasted. This was not medieval cruelty. This was modern administration. In the Caribbean, plantation economies left societies hollowed out, dependent, trapped in debt structures that outlived colonial flags. In the United States, slavery ended, but black people were never given restitution, land, or protection. Instead, they were met with terror, lynching, Jim Crow, mass incarceration, systems designed to replace the whip with paperwork. And the world was told this was progress. But trauma does not disappear because laws change. It passes down, through poverty, through health, through memory, through silence. The wealth extracted over centuries did not vanish. It compounded. It built generational advantage elsewhere, while black communities were blamed for conditions engineered against them. Even today, the descendants of the enslaved are asked to explain their suffering, while the beneficiaries are rarely asked to account for their inheritance. This is why the word Holocaust makes people uncomfortable. Because it forces comparison, because it demands acknowledgement, because it exposes selective memory. 400 years, across continents, across oceans, across systems. This was not one crime, it was a continuum, and it didn't end, it evolved. When history is buried, injustice feels natural. When truth is softened, accountability disappears. When memory is denied, repetition becomes inevitable. This is not about guilt, it is about honesty. You cannot heal what you refuse to name. You cannot reconcile what you deny, and you cannot move forward while standing on stolen ground, pretending it is neutral. This story is not told to inspire shame, it is told to restore clarity. Because forgetting was never accidental, and remembrance, real remembrance, is the first act of justice.